Hello again, everybody. I am currently sitting at my dad's house. I have some time to pass until my family member's wake, which is today. That's why I'm dressed all in black, not because I'm Johnny Cash Jr. trying to look cool. But I figured since I had missed a week when it came to posting videos and keep myself accountable with, uploading stuff, I said I was going to do a double video this week. I'll either upload it at time of recording today, Thursday, or maybe tomorrow after the funeral itself on Friday. But I wanted to keep an idea that I talked about in my last video fresh, which was two things. One, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an incentive to kind of, do the whole YouTube thing, like, subscribe, all that nonsense. So I actually have access to the footage of me doing a radio interview and then performing two of my songs on radio. It was for a local access out in the suburbs where I lived of Chicago. And that was the very first time that we got radio play, but also we're like realizing like, hey, we're actually getting somewhere. We're doing something. So if I get enough subscribers or views, then I'll probably do a react video. And it'll be one where it's a little bit more of a better edited piece. I'll actually take the time to kind of like go through some of the performance stuff, maybe even portions of the interview itself, and just be all like, hey, yeah, like this is what I was thinking. This is how we went about stuff. And it'll be kind of nice to reflect on something that I haven't seen in years that actually occurred almost a decade ago. I think it was in October that we got interviewed. So, yeah, we're almost coming up on the 10-year anniversary. Besides that, I also want to talk about something that I mentioned about with Reverb Nation, right? So when I started off with music, I don't know how many people are either remember or are old enough to be aware that when internet first came out, no one in the music industry, besides the actual high-level industry, knew how to basically utilize music. I mean, we had the whole Napster thing that happened in the early 2000s, and we realized that in some way a digital release of music was definitely something that you could do. That was another market channel, basically. But over time, people started recording some very early demos because promotion, advertising, and press kits. That's a word that you'll definitely hear that's a bit of a throwback. Those were all things that people were doing since like the 70s. In fact, my dad, with his both his own project and my uncle, who was also a relatively prominent musician in Chicago, what they did was kind of that whole Beatles-esque thing that started where it's just like, hey, let's just record a video. And then obviously in the 70s and 80s, that became music videos. But what a lot of bands ended up starting to do was put together promo videos, where it's basically a compilation VHS that they would send over to labels, where it shows them playing their original work. It shows them at some venues. It basically is visual proof that you're not just blowing smoke, or that, you're not just like a really good session musician, like you're actually capable of getting a draw. When the 90s and, the advent of internet started happening, a lot of people had a more easier access to do these things. You didn't need to hire a professional videographer. You didn't need to clear out an entire giant venue to do these things. We had smaller digital cameras that we had access to. We had a lot of indie people basically utilizing local resources to do these things. And press kits became a huge way to market yourself. It was kind of the digital all-in-one way of doing things. You can even look on early channels of YouTube, or the early years of YouTube. Some of these like very first things were bands doing these promos, these press kit style videos, and it was kind of the standard because it was a standard set in a time period where you knew you were a little bit more elevated than your local garage band when you had an actual promo video to show on top of like an actual demo of like recorded music. So going back to Reverb Nation itself, I'm not exactly sure when it started, but I know it was somewhere in the mid 2000s, maybe like 2007, 2008. Because I remember my brother was telling me about it with his band. He was like, yeah, Reverb Nation, it's this really nice musical all-inclusive thing. They allow you to put together press kits. They allow you to advertise. They allow you to upload music directly. Excuse me. And I'm like, that's a really smart thing. Like, I'm a senior. I don't even think I was a senior in high school. I was like a junior in high school, and I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. And from a very young age, I had a business minded, like marketing kind of mentality on things. Just because I had been doing a lot of videography with my dad because it was his own business basically, and me and my brother kind of got indoctrinated into cheap child labor. But in the government's eyes, we were just learning the business. But we learned a lot of these things from our dad and from exposure. And my brother, obviously, he did a lot of these things, and he recorded himself. He did videos of himself at shows, and he did the press kit and did all that stuff. Well, as the years went on, people started realizing Reverb Nation kind of operated in a bit of a triangle pyramid scheme kind of way. I'm not exactly sure how deep the rabbit hole went or how bad it got, but from what I had basically witnessed was this was an early example, not the earliest example, but this is an early example of pay per views in the sense of like, hey, you hire someone who has literally 10,000 fake accounts and basically you pay them and all of a sudden you have 10,000 plays over the course of X amount of time, or you have 10,000 new likes or 10,000 new subscribers, whatever that kind of whole scam aspect went. But not only did it do that, Reverb Nation also hid a lot of things to people using their services unless you paid a certain amount. And I don't know how deep this went, but I know to an extent, basically, if you didn't even pay like a couple of times a year, you would have very restricted access to where your music would be showcased. And they had their own charts, which were complete garbage, not really based on real life, charts in the sense of like, the Billboard Top 100 or, connections with real labels. So you have like an actual valid way of checking where your songs line up compared to others. From what I gather, most of these numbers were not just made up, but also heavily influenced by the people who did pay. And I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that from any internal chart source, but I do remember they made claims that they had industry contacts where it was like, hey, we're utilizing like the latest technology on top of the latest information to basically say you really are in the top 1,000 of the country or the top 100 of the state or, shit like that. So I had said this in the video that I had done, the other long form I did, that I never paid personally. I was in a group where any money that we made as a band, we invested back into the band. And we did end up paying for some of those services that Reverb Nation provided. I never got I never understood why people would buy a press kit when I was fortunate enough to realize, with the resources that I had, I could build my own. Like I can print my own flyers because I took a lot of graphic design courses in high school. I had access to videography equipment because my dad owned his own videography studio. I knew how to do audio recordings because we had an audio portion of that, and I was kind of learning how to do some recordings and editing. So I basically put together all of the shit myself for most of the projects that I was in, or at the very least projects that I was heavily invested in. So when I would hear people pay these astounding amounts to get a press kit put together and then have to pay to like keep it up on Reverb Nation and some of these other websites. Reverb Nation I'm going to use as the flagship because I know a lot of other ones came up around that time period and a lot of ones came after it that were more or less as scummy or scammy. But Reverb Nation specifically is what I'm going to use as kind of like the general catch-all title because I know it definitely got a lot of flack and I don't even know if it still exists today, but if it does, I don't know how. Anyway. So I was fortunate, I was lucky, and that kind of contributed to why my band was successful because I had a lot of resources and skills I could utilize to kind of get me ahead of some of the competition, on top of being, lucky like most bands have to be in order to get somewhere, on top of also being skilled musicians, which I was definitely lacking in, but thankfully my drummer and my bassist kind of carried me a little bit. Songwriting wise, though, I definitely knew I had something because... what I was talking about my last video, we were getting plays. We uploaded our stuff on a bunch of different channels. I'll take a small sidebar to say a lot of my stuff you're not going to be able to see anymore. I went through a dark phase, and I'm going to talk about this probably halfway through my video series of recording all of my music. I was in a really dark time, and I couldn't really handle the fact that my music career was over really before it began. And I went on a huge like disavow, delete everything phase. And this was kind of before internet really allowed you to save and store everything. I'm sure a lot of this stuff is still accessible, but at least from professional channels and ways that I did things, it doesn't really exist anymore. So thankfully, my drummer kept up a lot of our social media. So some of our stuff he actually has like on his actual hard drive, so I could re-upload some of these things, and that's how I have footage of the recording of us doing our band interview and everything. So I do have some access to it, and over time maybe I will bring it back up. But going back into it, there's not a lot of evidence out there, and I'll freely admit, yeah, that sounds suspect and sketch. IDGAF, like there was a time in my life where I was very gung-ho about music, and there's this time in my life where I'm just like, I just want to enjoy doing it again. So a lot of stuff that I have now really reflects more of the mentality of just like who I am, of like, I just want to enjoy music. I just want to do this to have a record. So, Reverb Nation and all of them were necessary at the time because we were still transitioning into what are you supposed to be doing with the internet? Right. And that sounds so suspect because it's like, hey, like in 2010s, like we had like, well, even channels like YouTube or channels, programs, apps, websites like YouTube didn't really get like that legitimacy until the 2010s, So you can imagine how long it would take for something like Spotify to even have gotten big, Amazon to have gotten big. iTunes was the only real professional format for the longest time when it came to digital musical distribution. Then you had all these other things that kind of cropped up and said they were partnered with, and like CD Baby. I know they had a little bit of a scam, but I guess they're kind of more legit now. Not going to throw shade at them too much because I personally never really had a problem, other than the fact that I still haven't gotten a lot of the profits that my album had sold. But I'll get to that in another video, probably after I finish my album, so like 4 or 5 videos from now. And I know it's a common thing. People just didn't know. And the people who were in the industry, or at least were in that mid-level, knew where they could exploit people, took advantage of a lot of people. And that's why, even though I thought my band was successful, I was kind of under a false flag. I talked about in my video where we were top 5 in the nation for blues. Well, top 5 according to Who's Charts. They're local ones that are pay to win kind of, fucking mentality. And like I said, I never paid anything for my project. I had them reach out to me about a bunch of things, a lot of services they were offer, and I could have got discounts, and I even could have done, I don't want to say like an ambassadorship. I can't really think of what they labeled it as. I didn't want to fucking deal with that shit because I was like, I'm doing okay as it is. We are getting shows. We are getting money. We got a recording. We work under a talent agency. We have 2 labels literally discussing picking up a contract and, doing something with. So I didn't end up doing it. So when years later, the charades came out and people knew everything that was going on, it didn't really bother me that much because I was just like, yeah, that kind of sounds about right. Do I feel bad for all the musicians who ended up spending their hard-earned money and, ended up not getting anywhere? 100%. That's fucked up, But it also prepares them for what life is like in the actual industry. And, keep in mind, I had 1 foot in. I don't know everything. I know what I experienced. I know some things when I worked at as a talent scout for a label, how the process goes. And it's not a fun time. The trade-off that you have of being able to play your songs to hundreds of people a night. Some people can live with that. Some people can't. I had so much integrity for my music that it cost me a lot of opportunity. And, it's why I'm not a successful musician, but I don't care. My music means more to me than money. And that's what steered me away from places like Reverb Nation. But I wanted to talk about it because, there are a lot of examples that propped up during that time period, and I'm sure that exists now. I don't even know what exists now to fill that void. But the mentality that comes from behind it, press kits, promo videos, demos, all that shit, all that has been a thing since like the fucking 60s and 70s. Like I was talking about, the Beatles started that with their music videos. MTV fostered it with music videos. So promos and press kits, all that's been a thing. And I guess I just want to talk about really quick, like you can do a lot of this stuff on an indie scale, and I don't really even know the benefits of a press kit anymore. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I heard that word, let alone, someone going on about the subject. You don't need any of that shit. Depending on what you are going for with your genre and your status as either a musician, a songwriter, or part of a group, all you need is a quality product. And I think that trumps everything else. Even now, in this digital age, where you need thousands of views, hundreds of subscribers across multiple platforms, I still believe if you have a quality product and you play out, and you have people come to your shows, sit in your seats, and pay you fucking money, whether it's through tickets, which, fuck tickets, I'll go on that on another tangent one day, or through contract negotiations of the venue that you're going to, and you get paid directly. I still think that's what's going to get you more success. Now, does everyone have that capability? No. What I'm doing right now, I'm recording something on the phone while I'm, killing time until I go to a fucking wake. That's easy. That's what anybody can do. You work 3 jobs and you can still find time to do a video of something. That's cool. That's what gets people, I don't want to say initially interested, but that's what keeps them on the radar. Going to your show and seeing you and enjoying the music that you're doing, that's what keeps people interested. That's what gets them initially. Being kept on the radar is good, but, at the end of the day, if you book a venue, and I know this happened, some guy basically lied his ass off about having thousands of fucking people come to his shows. He's got millions of plays on YouTube, Spotify. He planned like a UK tour or something. And after the second show of 0 people actually showing up, never hearing of this guy, he got found out and cost hundreds of thousands to a giant booking agency. So no one is impervious to the ease of use that is, the internet. And even a big agency can fall for that shit. But that also proves my point. Maybe this guy could have talked to big game and, over time he could have had hundreds of people fill these seats. But I would argue that would have been a much better indicator of, hey, are you actually something worth promoting? Doing a tour for, loaning you guys the money to do this shit. So I think it's important for people to keep doing digital medium stuff. I definitely think the concept of a press kit, which was just have something to show people so they know who you are. That's what the internet is now. That's what Twitter is. That's what YouTubes are. That's what all of these things are. It's just to keep people on the radar. Flip through, see a shorts. Oh, hey, this one group that I follow, they released a short of a new demo that they're going to be doing, or a new single, or a new album. Buy that fucking album. Support them. If you're not going to buy that album, but they're local, go fucking see them play. Buy a fucking ticket. That is really what's going to help them get somewhere. Is it going to be platinum selling albums and 1,000 fucking seat auditoriums? Probably not. But it's a metric that's still used by the industry today that has, it's like the price of gold. Like, it's set. If you have gold, you are going to have a certain amount of income, a certain amount of profit for you. If you just have cryptocurrency, yes, you have a established market value, but it's so subject to change. That's what internet is. That's what YouTube is. That's what all of the social media stuff is, like Reverb Nation was. Was it nice to have something consolidated that had its own chart system that allowed you to upload all in one, your songs, your press kit, your promos, where you were playing venues? Yes. But it detracted a lot of musicians from the core concept of promote the shit out of yourself, have good fucking songs, fill fucking seats. That's it. Even now, in 2023, after the pandemic, I still firmly believe that's how you're going to be successful as a musician. So, if there are still things like Reverb Nation out there that are advertising to people or, drawing people away from their core focus, which of the 3 things I just said, that is your core focus as a musician, don't worry too much about it. I was lucky. I had an opportunity to do all these things basically myself. You may not have that option, but it's also easier for you to have that option. Again, what am I doing right now? Killing time with a fucking video. I could record myself doing my stuff. I can record my band doing my stuff. Everyone has access to a phone. Everyone has access to, Scarlett's little interfaces for their computer, and you can GarageBand, for free. Do all that. Please. That is what's going to keep you on the radar. But going to shows, having good quality music, and filling fucking seats, that's what's going to get you somewhere. So that's the concept of the video today that I want to just spread to people, since I was thinking about Reverb Nation yesterday when I was recording my video for Someday. So let me know some opinions on this stuff. I actually am genuinely curious if there's any sites that people use that are trusted. I know Mary Spender was talking about a CD distribution or a music distribution place that was really good, and I checked them out. I can't remember their name, but I'm not trying to release anything right now. But again, if there's anything out there that you guys trust, put it on my radar. I want to know about it, because I want to be able to recommend to bands when I'm talking to people about my stories and where they can go and what they can do, what they can learn from me. I want them to have something that can benefit them. So keep me updated. If there's anything that comes across, let me know about it. Other than that, appreciate you guys looking at the videos like usual. Y'all have yourselves a good one, and hopefully next week I can get back on schedule and we can continue chronologically releasing every song I ever wrote and keep that series going. Until then, you guys have yourselves a good one.